I grew up in the Bronx, late 80s, early 90s.
The city of New York, Boricua from the Bronx.
Back then, the streets were not as bad as they were in the 70s. Don't get me wrong, and though the Bronx wasn't burning like it was in the 70s, there were still many buildings burning. I saw it myself. But they were still pretty bad, and it was still pretty rough out there. When I was growing up, I received a lot of abuse from my peers. That right there is an understatement. You see, in the hood, it wasn't like, give me your lunch money, or your hair's funny. It was straight up violence, straight up beatdowns. I was what one could call a good kid, or in the hood, a nerd. It should be noted that being a good kid in the hood made you a target. Going to school back then, I've equated it to a prison yard. I remember one time this kid grabbed me, and he was with a gang, and everybody knew him. And he grabbed me and pulled me to the side, and he told me, "Hey man, you're a nerd?" And I said, "No, I'm not a nerd. Do you know the alphabet backwards?" And I said, "No." He said, "Let me hear you try." At that point, I said, ZYX, I don't know the rest. And he laughed, and his friends laughed. And then out of nowhere, one of my classmates came and grabbed me. He said, "Yo, what's up, so-and-so?" "Nah, this guy's cool. He's not a nerd." He put his arms around me, kind of covered my head, and he was shielding me. I suspected that things could go bad, especially with this individual, but I didn't realize how much danger I was actually in. Like, this guy actually covered my head to protect me from getting punched from the back. I was getting set up to get jacked up, and that would have been really bad because there was a bunch of them. Shout out to Jose Nieves for that save back then. I always try to find this guy. I've never been able to find him, but always grateful. I don't know how I would have been able to continue going to that school if they jumped me. Those guys were always at that damn corner. Bunch of damn losers. In any case, that gives you an idea of what I was dealing with in school. Like I said a few moments ago, our schoolyard, our school, our neighborhood, it was like a freaking prison. Every day I went to school, I was tormented by my classmates. I was tormented on the way to school. I was tormented on the way home from school. I was assaulted. I was robbed. I was simply humiliated in classroom. Sometimes I get slapped in the face by girls because the guys thought it was funny. They'd take my milk. "I'm gonna take your milk." They take my money, they take my bus pass, they take your hat, they take your dignity, they take anything that you let them take from you. You might find yourself thinking that I must be exaggerating, but I'm not. I had a guy freaking steal a gold cap from my teeth. That motherfucker's nasty. I was a straight A student. I didn't have bad grades, yet I dropped out. Why? Open your eyes. Sometimes things ain't always what they seem. Because I was reaching the point that I was so depressed, I was so upset, I was so emotionally distraught that I was going to hurt myself. Shout out to my mom for catching that, and shout out to my counselor Freddie Baez, who was on this podcast in one of the earlier episodes, who helped me get through that emotional time. Or I was going to snap and hurt those people that were tormenting me. There were a few times I came to school with a butcher knife. I'm gonna get them if they do this to me again. And every time I came to school armed, they didn't come to class or they just left me alone. Our God is an awesome God. He reigns from heaven above. It's like a greater power was looking out for me. Because we know that had I done this, even if it was in self-defense, I probably would have not been in a good place right now. Sounds to me like we got us another understatement. You'd be locked up. And that in itself is going to take you down a path of darkness from which there is very little chance of return. I'm 44 years old. I own a home with my wife. I have a beautiful son. My family is healthy. We have a cute dog. My life would probably not be where it's at today if I would have acted out on those impulses from the abuse. There came a moment where I said, I can't do this anymore. I can't be there anymore. And I dropped out of school. My mom didn't really understand, though she kind of did. She knew what was going on. My teachers didn't understand. My guidance counselors didn't understand. I was a straight A student. Why do I want to drop out? They didn't get it. They didn't have to walk in my shoes. They didn't know what I was going through. I was a good kid. who was living in hell. Very few people knew. In fact, my mom and my sister, when I tell them some of the stories of the things that happened to me growing up, they're shocked to hear some of the stories. Men generally don't walk around saying, "Help me, I'm getting picked on," and especially back then. I'd never ask anyone for help. If you were a man, you couldn't go tattletelling and asking people for help. In fact, my mom went and spoke to the guy who stole my gold cap and asked me if that's my cap. I said, "No, that's not it. He wasn't him." Because that's the code of the street. That's how it was. I repeat, like prison. I survived on my own and I toughed it out as best I could. So yeah, I ended up dropping out of school. Then I went to a youth employment program. And as I mentioned earlier, I was a straight A student. So in that youth employment programs, I got A's. I aced everything. I was like the top student there. There's a saying that you never want to be the smartest guy in the room, because then that means you're surrounded by people who cannot contribute anything. And though I was never the smartest guy in the room, I was always really good at the academics. They offered me a job, and then the director of that program said, "No, Angel does not take this job. Angel is going to get on a bus. He's going to go to Monroe College. He's going to look at the 24 credit GED program, and he's going to go and get that GED and get a college education. He's not going to go into this job and start a life of thankless menial work." I found her. Her name is Sarette Thompson. I looked her up as an adult and I said, "Thank you so much for the advice you gave me. You are one of the people who helped guide my life to a better place." And I made sure I found her and I told her. And she said she started crying when she read the message. And I'm glad I touched her, because she touched and influenced my life. And she had to know that I was grateful. It is your job and duty to find and thank the people who steered and guided you in the right direction. When I went to the 24 credit program, I finished that in, 2 semesters, I don't remember, significantly faster than most people would. And at that point, most people would say, "Well, I got the GED and that's it." I had a few friends who also came and joined me on my advice, and that's exactly what they did. They got the GED and they dipped. Why they did that? I'll never know. Some of them ended up coming back, but they could have been there much quicker if they just saw it through. Unlike those people, it didn't seem logical to leave with just 24 credits. That doesn't make any sense. Why would I do that? I easily got 24 credits that granted me the GED, but I also had 24 credits towards my college degree. Why do people get a GED or a high school diploma? It's to go to college. And I was going to college while getting the GED. I was doing them both at the same time. It makes no sense to get the GED and dip. It's only logical that I stay there and see it through. And that's exactly what I did. And as I mentioned before, straight A student. I graduated my associate's degree with a 3.97 GPA. Summa cum laude, motherfucker. 3.97. President's list every single semester. Yeah. That got my foot in at Deutsche Bank because I got the top pick of jobs that were available. I spent the next 18 years of my life working there, working from back office to the front office, sitting with people who are controlling the global economy, supporting their computers. Remember, you also went to the Air Force and you went back to school, boy. While I was working there, I went back to school and I finished my bachelor's degree. That's right, boy, you can't forget that. Again, I graduated with a 3.97 GPA, straight A's, straight through every single time. I got 1 B+ throughout my college career. 1 grade that was not an A. And that teacher, she had it out for me. She couldn't give me a lesser grade, but she was trying to find a way to screw me, and she gave me that B. She couldn't get me on any of the homework, she couldn't get me on any of the exams, but she got me on one of the papers where the grading was subjective. In any case, I spent those 18 years on the trading floor. At this point, whether or not I went to high school is no longer relevant because of my college education and my years of experience. If you excel in your present endeavors, sometimes people have no idea where you come from or the journey that you took to get there, though maybe they should. So most people do not know that I dropped out. I don't often bring it up. Why would you? That's not a conversational topic, you idiot. But I think it's worth sharing it with people so that they can see that no matter the journey, you can end up in a good place. You just got to stay the course and don't give up. You will encounter difficulties, setbacks, challenges, but you gotta keep going and never, ever, ever give up. And that's the story of how and why I dropped out of high school.
You are listening to the NYC Talking podcast. www.nyctalking.com. Please like NYC Talking on Facebook. Please follow Angel R Talk on Twitter and Instagram. We are NYC Talking, the realest lifestyle blog ever. Thanks for listening.